Welcome to Preservation Oaks, the podcast where we invite you to step away from the bustle of everyday life. Settle in and relax, and take a moment to leave the familiar behind as we explore the hidden gems of America that preserve our cultural past. We call them our Preservation Oaks, and with each episode, we'll journey to a different corner of the country, where we'll discover the unique histories, landscapes, and communities that make up our nation. We'll visit with local museums, historical, and genealogical societies. They are the stewards of these stories. They preserve the legacy of each place like precious pieces of fabric in a quilt that binds the freedom-loving, hard-working people in this country together. So, slow down, grab a beverage, open your mind, and let us take you on a tour of the fascinating histories and heartfelt traditions that lie just beyond the horizon. This is Preservation Oaks, where every story is a stitch in the fabric of our shared culture. Now, join our host, Sean Radcliff, as he uncovers another thread in the tapestry of America's heritage and what it takes to preserve it.
Hey, History fam. Welcome back to Preservation Oaks, the podcast that's all about keeping the past alive, one incredible story at a time. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, coming to you from beautiful Salt Lake City. And today, we're diving headfirst into one of the coolest time-traveling adventures you can take without leaving your chair, genealogy. Yep, whether you're team Ancestry DNA or just vibing with old photo albums and grandma's stories, today's episode is here to help you level up your family history game. And helping us do just that is one of the absolute greats, Diana Crisman Smith, a straight-up legend in the world of genealogical research. She's walking us through the proven steps that'll help you avoid chaos, skip the confusion, and build a family tree that's not just impressive, it's goated. You're listening to Preservation Oaks on MicroStream Radio, the show where we celebrate America's museums, archives, and all the amazing folks working behind the scenes to protect our past for future generations. Quick shout out to our Day One listeners, and a big welcome if you're new here. Your support keeps this podcast rolling, and together we're lifting up the everyday heroes who keep history from fading away. So thanks for being a part of the crew. All right, let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever tried to trace your family tree and ended up buried under browser tabs, messy notes, and a pile of question marks? Maybe you hit a brutal brick wall, like an ancestor who just ghosted the historical record. Or your great aunt swears your great granddad came from Ireland, but all the documents scream New Jersey. Let's be real. Family research is rewarding, but it can also be a straight-up maze. Have you ever dealt with chaotic notebooks and lost files? Old school handwriting that looks like alien code, forgetting to cite your sources, or that gut-wrenching tech fail where you lose everything? If so, trust me, you're not alone. That's why today's episode is so important. It's called Piecing Together Your Ancestry, Proven Steps to Success, and we're serving up tools, tips, and expert strategies to help you avoid common mistakes and turn your family story into a legacy that lasts. Whether you're just dipping your toes in or deep in the archives with dusty census pages and mystery cousins, today's episode will give you fresh energy and smart strategies to take your research to the next level. So go ahead, grab that notebook, pour yourself a solid cup of coffee or tea, and get comfy. Because now I'm super stoked to introduce our guest, Diana Crisman Smith, a powerhouse genealogist, author, speaker, educator, and all-around history sleuth with decades of experience and stories that'll blow your mind. Diana got hooked on genealogy at just 10 years old, and she never looked back. For more than 40 years, she's helped everyday people crack their family history puzzles, spoken at conferences across the U.S. on land and sea, and written for some of the most respected genealogy publications in the biz. She and her husband even volunteered for more than 20 years as lay librarians at the Family History Center in Westlake, Ohio. She authored books like Finding Your Danish Ancestors, and her specialties include Midwest and Scandinavian research, methodology, and mentoring. She's earned major props, like the APGQ Excellence Award in 2010. And she's still out here doing the work, educating, mentoring, and helping people discover their roots with confidence and clarity. So let's roll. This is Preservation Oaks, episode 103, Piecing Together Your Ancestry, Proven Steps to Success, featuring the one and only Diana Crisman Smith. Let's get into it. Diana, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Sean. I'm happy to be back.
Hey, I'm so hyped to have you with us today. Seriously, being here to help our listeners dodge those classic OMG what the heck head slap moments that every family history nerd hits sooner or later. We totally appreciate you dropping your go-to tips and tried and true wisdom on us today. Thank you so much for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sean. I really, as I say, I'm happy to be back. I enjoyed my last visit, and so let's get into this. Getting started is said to be the hardest part of family history research, but there are other challenges along the way which have derailed many who started working on their family and just got lost or bogged down. What I want to talk about today is some tips, tricks, processes, and aids to keep you on track and enjoying your journey, because that's the whole point of this, to learn and enjoy. You've probably heard many genealogy experts talk about following a research plan. Well, that's good. But I think that's just a part of what I refer to as your personal research process. A friend of mine calls it a workflow, which I think is what you really need to stay on track. What do I mean? Your plan is, what am I doing today? What's my target, my goal? What are my resources, my objective in this specific case? For example, it could be, who is the wife of James Smith of Grundy County, Iowa, with whom he had at least 5 children in Iowa from 1833 to 1850. That's a very specific objective, to find out who she was. But before you look for her, you need to have some idea what you're looking for. So in this case, we have a husband, a place, and some dates. We want to find her name. That's a start. The next part of a research plan involves evaluating the potential sources and making a list of those you plan to consult. I would look for vital records for the husband and the children, and for Mrs. James Smith, since there might be a record listed that way. The children's birth and death records, and the death records for the husband should have some information about her. They might not, but they should. Look for a county history everywhere they lived. If they lived in 5 states, look in those 5 states. If they lived in 6 counties, look in those 6 counties. Any one of them might have some information. If they're in the U.S. after 1850, look at the federal census. Federal census before that is not so helpful because it only lists the head of household. But try the neighborhood churches to see if she was mentioned, or if there are baptisms for the children, or membership records, or even burial records, or marriage records. You know the drill. Look for everything, right? All of this is your plan. And as they say, you do you. Search and find using your favorite methods and resources, and keep track of what you consult, what you find, and what you don't find. There are numerous forms and templates you might use. That's a whole topic by itself. What works for me may not work for you. So it's a personal choice and will usually take some trial and error to find a research log or plan that works for you. Again, this is your research plan and needs to be the way you approach every research problem. And you do need to be consistent. What I consider more important overall is your process. That is, as you research, finding or not finding information, what are your steps in recording, analyzing, and processing what you find? Again, this is a personal choice. My late husband and I researched together for over 40 years. It was a challenge at first to determine a process that we could both follow comfortably and not step on each other's toes. We had very different approaches, probably due to our backgrounds. I was an accounting major and eventually went into logistics and software support. He was a political science major and coach, eventually working in marketing. Very different mindsets, but our research was important to both of us. So we sat down periodically and discussed our process. Today, I'll mention some of the things you need to consider in your process, but I can't tell you how to do it. That's up to you and your brain. I just want to share the areas you need to consider in your process and give you some suggestions. First, you need to broadly define the steps in your process. Here are some examples of the steps you need to consider. Use a research plan to start a session. As I mentioned, that should include an objective, the basic facts known, resources expected to be helpful, and a method for tracking results. As you begin searching, document every source you find before you begin using it. Now, this may sound silly, but there are two very good reasons. First, you may not find anything useful, but you want to know that you've tried this source so you don't waste time on the same search again. If you don't do it at the beginning, it's too easy to just close the book and walk away without recording it. Or, on the other hand, you may find something wonderful, in which case you may be so excited that you'll sometimes forget to record the citation. I admit I have done that, but not for a very long time. I learned the hard way. Once you're looking at the source and have recorded the citation, copy every word exactly as shown. If you can take a photocopy or even a camera copy, that's wonderful. But make sure you get all the notations on the edges, all pages relevant to your search, and the back of all pages. You don't want to have to go back and find it again. Now, I'm what is called a tactile learner. Reading it or hearing it is good, but I really need to touch it. Generally, that means taking notes or transcribing. I may never look at it again, although I usually do. But having touched it helps me remember. You may be tactile, visual, or oral, but figure out what works best for you and encourage that behavior. As you review the record, think about what you're reading. Does it correlate with other information you already have? Does it make sense with what you know about the family and the time and place? Make notes of anything that doesn't seem to track. If you use a computer genealogy program, record there the information you found. Include the citation and any notes, including anything that didn't make sense or highlighting any particularly interesting pieces of information. It's also good to record all other people involved in the document. They may be useful later. When you're done with this document, it needs to be filed appropriately. It may be a printed copy in your files, or you may keep only digital copies. This is another personal choice, but do it consistently. If you have found further clues from this record, add a task to your next research plan for the family or person so you remember next time.
Diana, those are wonderful tips and tricks. I really appreciate that. How can setting clear, realistic goals improve a person's genealogy journey?
Well, I've always heard, and I truly believe, if you don't know where you're going, you may never get there. Or alternatively, you may not realize when you arrive. You need to know what you want to find in order to know how to get there and to recognize when you've actually found it. So, for example, if you're looking for the wife of James Smith I mentioned earlier, be sure you define your goal properly. Don't be tempted to throw it all into one question. Take it a step at a time. As in the example, I just want to know what her name is right now. I'll worry about the rest later. If you get bonus information, great. But don't set out expecting to find her name, date and place of birth, parents, siblings, marriage, death, and burial all in one research plan. First, look for her name and possibly her marriage date, since that record will confirm she's the right person. Then look for one of the other pieces of information, for example, her birth or her parents. Note that when you find one, you may find other pieces of information, but don't assume that you will and just be happy for a bonus. Focusing your efforts is always best to avoid those rabbit holes. And remember, sometimes you need to nibble the elephant rather than going for major bites.
Great. Thank you. What are the most common misconceptions beginners have when starting their family history?
Oh, there's so many, but a couple of main ones. You may remember when Ancestry.com first began advertising on television, their ad said, "You don't need to know anything, just start looking." I'm sorry, but that's really not true. As I said before, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And it's true. The road you end up taking will undoubtedly include numerous rabbit holes and potholes, which may lead you way off track and waste your time and energy. Have a destination in mind for every search so you can avoid those holes. Stay focused. Another common misconception is that nowadays everything is available online. Oh my, nothing could be further from the truth. I've even seen statistics that say something like 10 to 20% of the information we need in genealogy is online. I think it may be getting a bit higher all the time, but still, it's way less than half. Yes, more is becoming available in digital form every day, but it's not anywhere close to everything we need. This is just what I consider the, quote, low-hanging fruit, and maybe a start, but will not provide the full picture without additional research and additional records or artifacts. This will be a fact of life for most of us for the remainder of our lives, so prepare yourself. But I think this is the fun part. Another misconception is every database has the same information. And oh my, no, they may overlap, but Ancestry, Family Search, and every other genealogy site will have something unique. You may not need to consult them all for every problem, but you will possibly at some point need to consult several of them, depending on your family origins.
Wow. Yeah, I learned that very early on. Everything is not available online. I had to go to historical societies all the time for information.
Yes, and even when I look in one database and don't find it, I go to another. I always check Family Search and Ancestry because I'm a subscriber there. But I always check both. But if you don't find it on one, check the other one. And sometimes even if you do find it on one, check the other one because it may be a little different.
Hey, what's your advice for somebody just starting to gather family records and oral history?
Just starting out is exciting, but it can be overwhelming. So a few tips for the absolute beginner, also known as a newbie. First, start with yourself. This is helpful in learning how to research. You know certain facts, or do you? Even for yourself, document everything you can. Obtain a copy of your birth certificate. Do you have a copy of your baptismal record? I found my father and I were baptized in the same service. Apparently, he hadn't had that opportunity as a child. I also found out I was dedicated in another denomination because they did infant baptism and the church I belonged to did young child baptism. If you're married, get your marriage license and certificate. If more than once, get them all. And obtain the proof of dissolution, divorce, death certificate, whatever dissolved the marriage. Birth certificates of your children. Look for proofs of all the places you lived and schools you attended. I've lived in 6 states, attended 10 schools before I finished high school, went to 3 colleges, lived in 10 homes with my parents, and 8 homes with my late husband. That also meant I attended at least 6 different churches, some more than once, including the one where I was baptized at age 5, then married 17 years later, and attended 4 others in between. That was a lot of practice in finding records and other information. What about your work experience? What about city directories? What about newspapers? This is all information you want to try to find on all your ancestors and relatives. So tracking it down for yourself should be easy, but it will give you experience for the next generation. Another important tip, go from yourself to the next generation, or as they say, start with yourself and work backwards. Don't go from yourself to someone you believe was your ancestor 150 years ago. Build a solid bridge, step by step. Once you have yourself documented, do the same for your parents and siblings. Third, I strongly suggest having a personal genealogy database. Picking a program is a personal choice, but you should definitely have a database, even if it's handwritten, although why do that when you can get so much benefit from a program? Ancestry or Family Search or any online database is not the same as a personal database. You need a database that you control exclusively, not shared with the rest of the world using the website's rules. If you choose to share information from your database later, that's an option, but don't depend on Ancestry to always be there, or on Family Search. My father there was linked as his own grandfather. It wasn't really easy to fix that, and since then, I do not try. but I do look at it once in a while, and I know that it's there. Ancestry, I have a minimal tree just to catch DNA matches. But my database is on my computer because I can control what facts are there, what the sources are, and how they're cited. Next, move on generation by generation, building on the information you learned at the last step. Think about everything and everyone you find. Does it make sense? Does it fit with the information you already have? If there's a contradiction, analyze it carefully to determine why there's a discrepancy. Did you record it wrong? Is one of the records hearsay or gossip? Analyzing as you find it will determine what is more likely to be true and help avoid moving forward on the wrong person or family. Do not throw out the error like the baby with the bathwater, but document and explain it so you don't have to analyze it again. And essentially, gather everything you can from your family, then verify with records as close as possible to the original. If you can't find a birth record, is there a baptismal record? If no death record, what about a reliable burial record? And finally, remember to follow your research process every time. Don't think, oh, I can record that citation later, or I'll just make a copy now and add to my database later. No, follow your process to make sure you don't forget to go back and do that step you skipped. And there are some secret advantages to following your flow. That's where you'll find gems that you hadn't initially noticed, or discover that the source has other information you can search.
Man, this is good advice. I've fallen into many of these rabbit holes several times before I learned.
Yep.
So thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to take a break for a few minutes?
Yes, I would. It's time to wet my whistle. As you can tell, I'm losing my voice a little bit, and it's also thundering here. So.
Okay, fantastic. Listeners, we'll be right back after these important messages regarding the genealogy books that Diana Crisman Smith has published, which are available at heritagebooks.com.
Are you searching for your family's past? Do you want to uncover the stories of those who came before you? If you're a genealogist, historian, or simply curious about your roots, then you need the essential resources from Diana Crisman Smith, author, educator, professional genealogist, and speaker, who has dedicated her career to helping family historians worldwide.
Diana Crisman Smith has published 3 genealogy books. 3 meticulously transcribed books, now available at heritagebooks.com, provide invaluable insights into the final resting places of countless individuals across Iowa. Shelby County, Iowa Cemetery Records, which was published in 2021, explores the records compiled by the WPA during the 1930s, meticulously arranged for clarity and ease of use. With details ranging from birth and death dates to military service records, this volume shines a light on those who shaped Shelby County's history. Next is Greene County, Iowa Cemetery Records, which was published in 2022, is a treasure trove for genealogists. Featuring tombstone readings from cemeteries across Greene County, this book ensures that the names and stories of the past are preserved for future generations. Every entry is arranged alphabetically, making it a must-have for family researchers. And published in 2024 is Wapello County, Iowa Cemetery Records, which was recently released. This comprehensive guide is an essential resource for anyone tracing their family's journey through Wapello County. With an easy-to-navigate format, this book provides a detailed finding aid, allowing you to locate ancestors with precision.
Don't let history fade away. Preserve your family's legacy with these expert-level books from Diana Crisman Smith. Whether you're a seasoned genealogist or just beginning your journey into the past, these books will become invaluable tools enabling your research. Visit heritagebooks.com today and bring the past to life with the help of Diana Crisman Smith.
Susan, my dear, the moment I laid eyes on you, I knew. You were the one.
Oh! I don't know what to say.
It's true love, Susan. There's nothing to say.
Oh, Lim, you've come out of nowhere and swept me off my feet like a
blinking great episode of the Preservation Oaks podcast. Don't miss a moment of Season 5. And if you're headed into history or genealogy land, keep the past between your toes, stay safe, and always listen with a cup of tea.
Visit preservationoaks.podbean.com or wherever you grab your favorite podcasts.
Hey, history lovers! Your family's story is epic, but if you don't hit record, who's going to tell it? Whether it's your grandpa's first job, your aunt's civil rights march, or the time your family moved across the country with nothing but a suitcase, it's history, and it deserves to be heard. Start by sitting down with the storytellers in your life. Ask questions. Listen. Use your phone. Record the moment. These stories can't be Googled. Once they're gone, they're gone. Not sure where to start? Visit StoryCorps.org for easy tips and sample questions to get your first interview rolling. Be the one who saves the story. The Family Archivist.
This message was brought to you by Preservation Oaks, because your voice matters, and your history does too.
Hey there, are you passionate about history, genealogy, and preserving the stories that make America unique? Preservation Oaks is looking for a collaborator, someone who shares our mission of honoring local historical and genealogical societies across our nation. This podcast is volunteer-based, purpose-driven, and deeply rewarding. If you've ever wanted to be part of a meaningful project that highlights the unsung heroes of preservation work, this could be your moment. Whether you're interested in co-hosting, producing, researching, or learning the ropes behind the scenes, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us directly at preservationoaks@gmail.com. Let's talk about carrying this legacy forward together. Thank you.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Well, welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, and we're here today with Diana Crisman Smith, professional genealogist, author, writer, speaker, and educator. Now let's pick up where we left off. Welcome back, Diana.
Thank you. Good to be back. Hopefully I've got my voice back stronger now.
Diana, what role does organization play in successful genealogical research?
To me, the biggest advantage of good organization is time and accuracy. If you're organized, you'll avoid doing the same research over, and you will have analyzed to be sure you're following the right path. But if you're not organized, these benefits may be lost or overlooked as you go through your research. Now, organization does not necessarily mean duplicate copies of records, color-coded file folders, or massive lists of data to reference everything. Having and following a simple organization plan for your documents, digital records, and other data is best. Remember, KISS. Keep it super simple. An organization goes beyond the physical elements of your research. You need to organize your mind and workflow to stay on track. In other words, when you start a research project, write it down. All the information you have on the goal, the steps you plan to take, resources you plan to use, objective of the search, then the results of those steps and resources, and whether you met the objective. Then add next steps before you forget where you want to go next. Part of organizing the process or workflow is knowing what you will do with that information you find. To review, here's a simple example research process. Start with a research plan, do your research, find your objective, record what you find in your personal database. Don't forget your citations and notes about the quality. Digitize or copy records as needed. File digital or paper copies per your established system, remembering to KISS. If you want, you can share with others at this point. If you want to update Family Search or Ancestry or send information to cousins, whatever, then define your next goal and repeat. I wouldn't share with them until you've done the analysis and correlation and recorded it and done all the steps in your own personal process, just so you don't get sidetracked. Now, this is very simplistic and leaves lots of room for you to define your own processes, but you need to be sure you have at least this much structure for your research process. Mine is more detailed. I've seen some that are extraordinarily detailed. Again, keep it super simple. Do not create a process that you cannot or will not follow every time. Make sure to have the steps defined so that if you're interrupted, you can find where you were to continue later. We know life happens. I have some simple half-sheet forms on colored paper I sometimes use that say, "What was I doing?" to remind me if I get such interruptions. Gives me a place to record what I was doing, including the goal, how far I had gotten, any steps not yet completed, and where I plan to go next. This comes in very handy, especially when you can't get back to your research for days, weeks, or months, which can happen. Being organized will facilitate resuming after these breaks.
Great information. Are there specific tools or templates you recommend for tracking research progress?
Yes, having some basic tools, forms, templates, and resources available as you research will help you stay on track. Again, this will be a personal choice, but here's some things to think about. A research plan or research log. This can be a form or a computer template that you record that basic research question or goal I mentioned at the beginning. How you do it is up to you. If you Google research plan or research log, or if you search on YouTube, you'll find numerous suggestions on what and how to use these. What you use is up to you. It may be a paper form or a computer template, but use something consistently. Your format or structure may evolve over time, which is normal, but at least have something when you start and be consistent with it unless you mindfully change it. Next, a genealogy database to keep track of your family as it grows. This is crucial, but it must be an integral step in every bit of research. If it gets out of date, it's not very helpful. Citation aids. Every record, book, or other source you consult, including artifacts and humans, must be cited in your records. Again, there's several reasons for this. Most important are, first, to prove to anyone reviewing your research that you actually saw that information. And two, so you can find it again if you need to. Now, I don't expect everybody listening will want or need to do absolutely perfect citation, including periods and commas in the right place, according to one of the accepted formats for genealogy. But you do need to know what the essential elements of a citation are and be prepared to present your research with appropriate citations should you choose to publish. Now, don't laugh. I never expected to publish, but I've done numerous articles and even a few books with more in the works. Many times the publisher will provide guidelines for the citation style. But if you haven't captured the information, you'll have to go back and find it. Not fun. There are some sources I've referenced that I've never been able to find again. but at least I got the citation the first time, so I could cite it properly. If you don't have time to do it right the first time, you certainly don't have time to do it over. A few other basic resources you need, such as a good dictionary, preferably for the time period in question. You may also need an English whatever dictionary. I have at least 8 different dual language dictionaries available for reference as I research. 3 of them I use frequently. A reference on the law. There are many, but I started with an older edition of Black's Law. A reference for medical terms. Again, I started with an older edition of Gray's Anatomy. As you proceed, you'll find more references you want handy. Often you can have your own copy, or you can refer to them at your local library or online. Sometimes it's nice to have them at home, but it can be expensive. Other essential references will depend on your area of concentration. I primarily have books on Iowa, Denmark, New England, and U.S. military records, especially the Civil War, land records, and census. These make up about 10% of my collection, but I refer to them the most often.
I can't tell you how many times this log has saved me, how much time it's saved me, because I'll be researching and I'll fill out the research log. Here's the sources I've checked. Then I go away for a couple of days and I've forgotten, I come back and I'm going, oh man, okay, I got to check this and this and this. No, I already did. Yeah.
That's why you use the research log or plan and note not only where you searched, but what you searched for and what you found or didn't find.
Yeah, it really saves. It's such a time saver.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what problem-solving techniques do you use to work through conflicting or missing data?
Well, the first technique I use for most issues is to retrace my steps, looking at everything with fresh eyes. Think about what I really want to know, what I already know, what sources may provide that information, and then go through all of those sources again carefully to make sure I didn't overlook any hints or clues or information or misinterpret something or misrecord it. For conflicting information, this is done for all sources relevant to the problem, considering the reliability of each source and reviewing all the elements and how they interact. And it's important to write down this thought process in analyzing sources. You know clearly right now, but in a few days or sometimes hours, if you're busy, you won't remember the details. And a bonus, this will give you practice in writing a coherent genealogical proof, which could become the basis for a very interesting article.
Yeah, good advice. Now, how do you recommend people document and verify the accuracy of their family stories?
Documenting your sources using an accepted format or style is very important. And that includes when you're getting a story from someone, consider it an interview, and there is a style for doing an interview source. As you do that, one of the things to consider is the reliability of the source. So make sure you read any introductory information about the book, record, or collection. Was it a transcription of some database? If so, can you find that database to go closer to the original? Is it a compilation from something? Or is it someone's original work with or without sources listed? What are the caveats? Were there only certain years included? Is it only for certain townships in a county? Were there many records unavailable? Make sure you know what you're looking at and include any of these warnings with your citation for others to understand and you to remember. Now, if it's a person that you're interviewing, make sure you make note of the situation. Where were you? When was it? And if you have a note about, I was speaking with Aunt Bertha. Aunt Bertha has always had a mind like a steel trap and still does, even at age 82. Put that in your notes so that you remember that and you can tell somebody else, yeah, I trusted her memories at that point. Or if it were my grandmother was suffering from senile dementia when I was about 10. She lived until I was about 55 when she died. So most of my memories of her are that she was forgetful and didn't remember things very well. But I found some tricks to do with her. So make sure that you think about what you're reading, or who you're talking to. When I dealt with my grandmother on trying to remember things, I didn't count too much on facts, but what I found I could do was take her on a road trip, drive around the neighborhood. What do you remember about this area? Oh, so-and-so lived there, and so-and-so lived there, and the kids lived here, and we went over and played over here. And she remembered those things from the memories, not trying to remember a fact. And same with photographs. Photographs were awesome. So think about those things when you're doing your interview, when you're evaluating your interview, and make notes about it. Okay, this is what we were doing, and this is why it worked. As you're reading a book, think about what you're reading. Does it make sense? Is it clearly stated? Are there citations? Does it fit with the information obtained elsewhere? These are all parts of the analysis and correlation that must be done for every piece of information you obtain. Just recording everything you find without thinking about how it fits together as you go leaves you open to going down one of those rabbit holes. If something doesn't seem right, dig into it now before you move on. You want to reduce doubt in your source, resolve conflicts in data within or between sources, and develop a reasonable hypothesis. Then test it to confirm a conclusion and write out how you came to that conclusion so that you can remember your logic later.
Yeah, great advice. I know my mom had my great aunt write down, before she died, my mom had her write down everything she remembered. And as my mom gave that to me to do the family history, about 95, I would say, 95% of it was completely accurate and proven accurate. But there were some caveats. You know, at one point she said that my great-great-grandfather had died in a particular spot. And in fact, he hadn't died in that spot at all. I found him in a completely different state where he had passed away. So, you know, you really have to do your due diligence.
Because memories aren't always perfect either.
Yeah.
I mean, so you just have to consider the source and make note of who and what and when.
Yeah. Now, how should researchers access and interpret vital records like birth, marriage, and death?
First, look for the original records whenever possible. Now, the major genealogical websites do have indexed, digitized collections of many vital records, but not everything. When you find something there, don't rely on the abstract. That's what you'll see first. And, it's so easy to just take the information from the abstract. However, that's subject to typographical errors or mistranscription of hard-to-read text. So you want to look at the abstract just as I consider it a finding aid to get to the original, and then look at the document, because most of those will be attached to an image of the digitized document. So look at the digital original and note whether it appears to have been altered in any way. Make your own transcription from the original and do it carefully. If there's an AI, artificial intelligence transcription, I only use that, again, as a finding aid. I still make my own transcription and find it's normally more accurate. Compare any difficult to read words with others in the same section, preferably the same county and time frame, to see how the clerk wrote things. If it's a document like a will, compare several to determine which phrases are what's called boilerplate, which are used in every document of that type in that time and place. And then whether your document has any variations. One variation I found in a number of wills and deeds after 1776 was the statement of the date. Prior to U.S. independence, the date often said in the whatever year of the reign of King Charles, or whoever the king was at the time. After independence, this was no longer needed, but sometimes would be replaced with in whatever year of our independence, showing the patriotism of the writer. If it still said the reign of the king's statement, that might be a clue to the writer's politics. He could have been a loyalist, and even after independence might have still held some affinity to the king. Check other records to determine whether it was the clerk or the maker of the document who made this insertion. So if all the records of that time have the same phrase, it's the clerk. If it's only that one, it's the maker. So think about those kinds of things. So watch for other clues by those kinds of differences. Compare the information in the document with other information you've obtained from other sources. If it's different, try to determine why that might be. Was the informant likely to know that information, or was it just an acquaintance? If it's another relative, would they be likely to know this information from being around, or was it just from hearsay? Was the subject prone to embellishing facts about their life? My husband's great-grandfather's age decreased by several years in every document, beginning at his first marriage and continuing to his death. So by then he was shown as about 35 years younger than he probably was. Look for clues that this is not an original document, but a recreation or substitute. If it was not made at the time of the event, there's more possibility of error in transcription. One example of such substitutes is a delayed birth certificate. These were quite common in rural Iowa, where I spent a lot of time researching, for births, mostly from about 1920 to 1950. Even though they did keep birth records before, long before, and during those years. The delayed certificates were often created many years later for the children of farm families, born at home, whose birth had not been registered since they were not born in a hospital. These are, of course, subject to error due to the delay. However, they often required proof in the form of a Bible record, insurance policy purchased for a child, or school records, all of which are very helpful. My own father had a delayed birth certificate because his birth was not registered at the time because they were a farm family. Look for corroborating documentation wherever it might be. And if you can get access to the original undigitized record, that's awesome. There may be notations on the back, written after the item was digitized, or there may be notes inserted between records. Any clues are helpful. Just be sure to write down everything you observe.
Yeah, great information. How does somebody evaluate the credibility of digital sources?
When you're thinking about using any source, digital or otherwise, you need to think about a number of aspects of that source. First, the origin. Why was the source created and by whom? One of the most common examples of why this is important is a death certificate. It contains a number of pieces of information, but not all carry the same credibility. The cause of death information is most likely to be believed since it was provided by the physician at the time of the event, for the purpose of the event, the documentation of the death. However, other information on the record, such as the name, address, birth date and place, and parents, are from another source at the time, unrelated to those events. Having the name of the informant is helpful, but may not be conclusive. For example, if the informant is a parent or older sibling or close aunt or uncle, they would probably know that information. But if it's a friend or a younger sibling or other unrelated person, that knowledge is less likely to be more than a guess. So every piece of information must be considered individually as a source. Then consider, is it an original or derivative record? An original or digital image of one is very different from a digital image of a derivative record. A derivative record is one that is a transcription or other document created from the information on the original, although it may not have been from the original directly. You don't really know that, but try to find out. But a derivative record or transcription may be several generations away from the original, which leaves room for error in each transcription. Consider other records in the set. Are they similar in care and readability? Did he write one really neatly, and then the next one was a horrible mess, and then the next one was neat? But see if you can figure out why. Don't forget to read that introductory material about the set to see what information is given about the source. You may have to hunt for this information, but do try to find it when you're citing the source. Has the record been reviewed or challenged by others? Court documents are a good example. If a document was presented in court, it was subject to review, challenge, and confirmation. It may not have been confirmed, but there was a chance. And other records around it should indicate whether the court found it valid. For example, after being presented The court accepts a will for probate. That confirms it believes in the validity of the document and the death of the writer. Does the author or creator have reason to be presenting the information in a biased or prejudicial manner? Family history should present the facts and let the reader draw conclusions. Do they? Or do they try to lead the reader toward a particular conclusion or perspective of the person or event? And remember this when you write. State the facts you found, not your opinions, unless you state clearly that's what it is. For an authored work, not an original document created for official purposes, are the sources cited clearly? And are they the most authoritative or relevant sources possible for this information? If not, is there a reason why not? And could it flavor the perspectives or conclusions? And does the record show any indication of having been altered? Also, are all the pages of a multi-page document shown? And have you reviewed them all? I know it's an 80-page will. I don't care. I want you to review all of them. And if it's a 120-page probate packet, review every page. Do you have access to the backs? Many documents may have annotations on the reverse, which could be valuable information. For example, I found a request for a military marker for a grave. On the front were some annotations by the military, implying the request was not filled, and there was no marker on the grave. On the reverse, however, was the explanation. The soldier had been discharged as of a specific date under, quote, conditions other than honorable. So the request was denied. That provided an explanation for why he had no headstone at all. The family member who had requested it dropped his efforts. It seems he didn't know about the dishonorable discharge and was disappointed in his brother, so did not pay for a headstone for him himself and left him in an unmarked grave. This leads to further research opportunities in his military records as well to find out why he was discharged as such. Read every word of every document. It may be important. Finding an informant on a death certificate from an institution was not in any way related, and said so, led to further researching whether any of the family members even realized the person had died. If you have any reason to question the credibility of any document, be sure to note that with your citation. Some software programs may facilitate this by providing quality features for your source, such as they may allow you to use checkboxes for the sources original, derivative, authored, or unknown. The information may be primary, which is by a witness at the time of the event for the purpose of the event, or secondary, which is everything else, or unknown. Evidence could be direct. It answers your research question directly. Remember, that's why you have a research question to begin with, because you need to know when you've reached your answer. Or is it indirect? It implies the answer to the question, and you need other sources to confirm that. Or is it negative? Missing evidence, which implies the answer to the question is no. In other words, the record set purports to contain all marriages in a church between 1944 and 1960. The marriage was reported to have taken place in this church in 1957. That missing record is negative evidence of the event. Other attributes may be listed, so understand them and use them if they're available. If not, make a note about these and other factors which lead to your sense of the credibility of the record.
Yeah, whenever I go on Ancestry or Family Search and I look for information and it comes up and says, here's the transcription, but the image is not available, my heart sinks a little bit.
Exactly.
Because I can't look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see it myself. Yeah. So then you go to the catalog and you find out where they got it and see if you can go back to that source, the county courthouse for most U.S. records, and try to find it.
Oh, yeah, because I know back then they used to write notes on everything in the margins and stuff, and they don't record that on Ancestry a lot of times.
No, the instructions when you transcribe, because I've done transcription for both Ancestry and Family Search, and the instructions are you put down what they put in the fields. You don't ad lib. Well, If there's a note, I want that note on there, but they don't give you a place to put that. So that's why I want to see the original.
Yeah. I've had census records that have a little note in the margin and then an arrow over to who it applies to on the record.
Yes. Yeah. My husband's grandmother was a census taker in 1950, and she made notes all over the place because it was a small town and she knew everybody. And her son and daughter-in-law were one of the families that she had to evaluate, had to record, and they weren't home. And she wanted to make sure it was understood that, that they weren't home because they were working. Well, the wife wasn't working, but the wife was 8.5 months pregnant. So she was allowed to not be home.
Wow. Now, Diana, what should someone do if the vital records they need aren't digitized or readily available?
Okay. As I mentioned, if they are abstracted somewhere, you can usually find out where the record was created. And if it's not there, go to the family research wiki to find out where the records for that time and place should be. Then try to go to that place to find out where you can find them. There's a website called cindyslist.com, CYNDISLIST.com, where you can find links to aids for finding all kinds of things. And so you can find there a lot of places where records should be. Then contact that courthouse or archives to see if they're still in existence. If they've been transferred to another agency, such as a county archive or a state archive, or if they have copies. Some places may have microfilmed them, but don't share them with outside agencies. Other places, they have microfilms that you can look at, but you can't see the originals without special permission, things like that. You may have to visit the location to see them in person. That's not all bad, although traveling may be time-consuming and expensive, but you get to see the documents in person. And even better, you get to ask questions of the staff about the records, and you get to follow any clues in other records.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. I also think it's pretty cool that you were a transcriber for Ancestry. I think that I didn't know that. That's really cool.
I also transcribed 1950 census for NARA. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
fantastic.
when you can, volunteer, because you'll learn a lot.
Yeah. Now, what are the pros and cons of different family tree programs?
Oh, there's so many. My husband and I used to do product reviews of software programs. So I've tried them all. I don't want to get into specifics on them and appear biased, although I am. But I will give you some of the factors to consider in selecting the right one for you. First is price. They range in price from $0 to hundreds of dollars. Some of those with the price also have a free trial version, so you can try before you buy, which I highly recommend. You don't have to spend a lot to get a lot. Some of the $0 to trial have wonderful features and maybe enough for you. Compatibility. Make sure you have a Mac or Windows computer. Be sure the program supports that one. Most support Windows, only if you support Mac. So make sure you know which one it will support. And also check the version of your operating system software. For example, I'm now using Windows 11, so I have to make sure that the software supports that. If I were still using one of the old versions of Windows, it might be harder to find something that supported that. And then make sure your specific version for the Mac is supported, because I have a friend who runs into issues every once in a while that her current Mac version is not supported, or vice versa. Functionality. Is there a limit to how many people or events or sources you can put in your database? Trust me, you will probably end up with more people, events, and places than you expect. I figured my husband and I together might end up with 1,000 people. I have over 25,000 people and try to keep it limited to reasonably close relatives. But 25,000 was kind of beyond my expectations, and it's still growing.
Yeah.
But does it do everything you want? And that's the key to why I selected the software I do, because it does do everything I want, including how does it handle source citations? That was a problem I had with my original program. It did not handle source citations at all well. Everything was free form, and I had to do it just as a note. That was not acceptable to me. And as I've gotten more into genealogy, it's even less acceptable. So I think the best genealogy programs are those that let you use standard genealogy citation formats in their source citations, but yet allow you some flexibility if you don't have something that fits into that or want to do it that way. Can you attach photos and documents? Do you have to make a copy to put in the software folder, or can it find your image wherever it resides on your computer? Can it attach a document or photo to a specific event, or is it just in a person's photo gallery? And can it attach the same image to more than one person? Does it print the reports you consider essential? I use a lot of reports. I use family group sheets, pedigree charts, what's called an individual notes summary in my database, various lists, on and TOEFL reports I use frequently. My program also does dozens of other reports, plus custom reports, and even books can be created. Is there support available if you have a problem? And that's important. And the program I use has online support available. It has a link to an online research wiki where most questions are answered. But if you can't get your question answered there, they have real people that answer your questions. And I know those real people, and they know what they're talking about. So that's awesome. Do they issue frequent updates? Are they free, or is there a fee, or do you have to buy a new program? I remember one program I used, every time they upgraded, which was about every 6 months, you had to rebuy the program.
Yeah.
That's not good. Most will do updates of minor tweaks and problem-solving issues. If there's a security issue, something like that, those are free, and you don't have to pay for those. And then when they do a major rewrite upgrade, which for the program I use is every few years, then you can buy the upgraded program for a discounted price. I like that. Okay, there are lots of other factors to consider. You might Google comparing genealogy software and see what you find. You can also find some of those on YouTube. Ask your friends. Ask the local genealogical society. See if your society has a special interest group, also known as a SIG, S-I-G, for the software you're considering. This can be a valuable resource for learning to use it and troubleshooting. I co-host one of these for my software, and we group source answers to our questions every month, so we all learn something new. And if we can't find the answer, one of us calls into support and gets the answer there and reports back.
I know the one I use, I get discouraged because I add media all the time. I take local copies of everything instead of letting it go out to Ancestry or something and pull in the media. I also keep a local copy.
Because it may not be there next time.
Yeah. And I add that to the record all the time, manually. Here it is. Well, now I look at some of those people that I've added where I know for sure I've added that media, and the media is not there. So now I'm faced with, I got to go back and review every single one of those.
Look and see if your software program will fix broken links.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Some do. Mine does that. And it will go out and it will look. And if you haven't changed the name of the file, it will search your whole file, your whole system for that file name. And when it finds it, it will relink it.
Okay.
That's usually the problem, that you've moved the file and you can't find it now. So as long as you don't rename it without fixing it in your database at the same time, you're okay. If you do want to rename it in your software program at the same time that you rename it on your system.
Thank you so much for that. That might save me a whole lot of heartache.
Yeah, because that can be a real pain. I don't link a lot of media to my database at this time, just because 25,000 people was out of hand when it started becoming an option.
Yeah.
So I just don't even try, but I do intend to do that. And I'm starting to gradually do it. But
yeah, working with that media, it's hard. You
It is.
got to find it in your file and keep track of it and make sure, all this stuff. Yeah, it can be tedious.
That's why you have a system and why you have a naming convention for all of your files.
Yeah, good point.
That's part of that KISS process.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Diana, I think it's time for us to take a break for a few minutes.
Yep, I'm starting to lose my voice again. So
Great, okay. Listeners, we'll be right back after this important message about engaging with one of the most respected voices in genealogy. Learn how you can visit the Genealogical Speakers Guild at www.genealogicalspeakersguild.org to schedule Diana Crisman Smith for your next event.
Are you ready to unlock the stories of the past and bring your ancestors to life? Whether you're a seasoned researcher or just beginning your genealogy journey, one speaker stands above the rest: Diana Crisman Smith. For over 4 decades, Diana has captivated audiences across the country with her expert knowledge and engaging storytelling. She's spoken at national and regional genealogy conferences, historical societies, and even on genealogy cruises. From uncovering lost family connections to understanding the secrets of Scandinavian ancestry, Diana's insights will inspire and empower you on your journey of discovery.
As a writer, educator, and professional genealogist, Diana has contributed to top genealogy publications, penned essential research guides, and taught countless researchers how to break through their biggest brick walls. Her presentations cover everything from beginner methodology to advanced research techniques, including Midwest research, Scandinavian ancestry, immigration records, and even cemetery discoveries.
Need a speaker for your next genealogy event, seminar, or workshop? Diana is available for both in-person and virtual presentations, making it easy to bring her expertise to your audience, wherever you are. Don't miss the opportunity to engage with one of the most respected voices in genealogy. Visit the Genealogical Speakers Guild at www.genealogicalspeakersguild.org. Search the members directory for Diana Crisman Smith and book her for your next event today. Diana Crisman Smith, helping you piece together your past one ancestor at a time.
And now, here's a little nugget for you. Join a historical society and find out why your great-grandmother looked so grumpy in all those photos. Spoiler, it wasn't just the corsets.
You will be pleasantly surprised when you discover how Spam baked for dinner is a real taste tester that satisfies the family completely. That's because Spam, S-P-A-M, is a perfect blend of sweet, juicy pork shoulder meat and tender ham, seasoned in a better way, cooked to a delicious extra goodness. Plan a meal around baked Spam. It's so easy. Just open a can of Spam, place the meat in a shallow baking dish, and bake according to the recipe on the label. In a jiffy, you'll take to the table a main course so distinctive in meaty flavor, so filled with lip-smacking satisfaction that the family will say, Spam is really elegant eating. Give the folks baked Spam tomorrow. The easiest to get, best to eat dinner you've had in a long, long time. But start right and get the real thing. Be sure to ask your food dealer for S-P-A-M, Spam. And then you'll be happy like Susie in the story, who found...
Susie winked her eye, and Sam passed her by, but baked spam for dinner was the way she got her guy.
9 out of 10 curators agree Preservation Oaks is the best podcast on the internet.
At Preservation Oaks, we love history. Not dry, boring dates and facts, but rather the stories of the past about the people who were there. We believe history is our cultural fabric. We are very grateful for our Historical and Genealogical Society guests, who share interesting history and information about their society, their current needs, and about what makes them unique. If you're a Historical or Genealogical Society listening to Preservation Oaks, and you'd like to be a guest on the program, please email preservationoaks@gmail.com.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Radcliff, and we're here today with Ms. Diana Crisman Smith, professional genealogist, expert, author, writer, speaker, and educator, who has spent several decades of her life helping others with their family histories. Let's keep exploring this interesting topic. Welcome back, Diana.
Thank you. Good to be back and ready to get going again with one of my favorite subjects.
Now, Diana, what's your advice on including non-biological relationships? An example would be adopted or step family.
Oh, I love this question because I believe family is family. Steps, halves, adopted, foster, whatever. My mother was an only child with a half-brother and a stepsister. So it became quite apparent to me as a child that there were relationships other than the standard mother, father, and children. It was a feature of my grandfather's 3 marriages, which meant I had numerous sets of grandparents. My mother's biological father and his 3rd wife were very involved in my life. Her biological mother and her 2nd husband, my father's biological parents. I never met my grandfather's 1st wife, and she married some stranger after him and moved away. But these people are all in my database to help keep relationships straight. Because as a very young child, I only had one first cousin until I was 25. And then I got some first cousins on the other side of the family. So my family is very small. So those extra people were important. And I was spoiled rotten because I had all those grandparents. But I definitely believe that all those non-biological people belong in your database. Several reasons. Now, most trees will print the biological ancestors, but there are usually ways to get a different family group, so that I could print my bonus grandparents' trees with their ancestors if I want, and I do that. All of the people in your family have an impact on you, so I track them all. I remember what do they call it, nature versus nurture argument. All of those people are the ones that are the nurture part of that argument. They are the environment that you're in, and so they have an impact on your life. But it also helps to determine who some of those seemingly random people who turn up in records are. Could be relatives of the non-biological family member. My software program allows unlimited parents with a tag to define the type: biological, step, adopted, foster, etc. And then children can be attached to the correct couple. It's worth it to track them all. It's up to you how far. When needed, a person can have multiple sets of parents. As my mother's stepsister, who was later adopted. So she has her biological parents and her step parents, and then her father became an adopted father. So,
thank you. I think it's important too. I do the same thing. Which genealogy websites and databases do you consider essential?
It depends on who and what you're researching. I use dozens of databases regularly and dozens more on an as-needed basis. Some of my go-tos are familysearch.org, which I recommend for its wonderful research wikis, millions of records from around the world, and it's free. That's a bonus right there. So that's one of the first places I send people. However, there are caveats, and be careful of the tree. That's not something that I'm real strong on. I don't recommend starting your research with trees from any place, because that's just somebody else's research or opinions. And I was raised with software consulting in mind, and we had an expression, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
So be careful what you're finding. Ancestry.com has millions of records. Some overlap with other databases like Family Search, and some are unique. It's not free, but if it has what you need, that helps. It also has some associated websites I find helpful. Notably, newspapers.com and Fold3 are now part of the Ancestry umbrella. And so some of the subscriptions to Ancestry.com include access to these. I use Fold3 frequently for military research, and I look on newspapers.com for everybody just to be sure. I found myself under my maiden name 9 times in a search from my birth to now, and another 45 entries that weren't me. Interesting remembrances of some events in my life that someone considered noteworthy. And there are lots under my married name because of my speaking and teaching and genealogy. I also use the Danish National Archives website because I'm doing lots of Danish research. That's my most immigrant nationality from the 20th century. It has most of the records I need to get going, and it's free. Find sites that relate to your area of interest and bookmark the ones you like. I know some people recommend Scotland's people if you have Scottish ancestry, and others such as that. I use cindyslist.com daily. It's a great starting point for any topic or place, and it's free. And there are thousands of links, all verified by Cindy personally. She's been keeping this list for over 20 years, started it for herself, and she keeps it up, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I also use Google to get me started on topics sometimes, but I always try to find other reputable sites, and I don't believe everything that Google or any other artificial intelligence tells me. These are good clues, but not proof or facts. But it is a good finding aid. If you're researching in New England Ancestors, also known as the New England Historic and Genealogical Society, has some excellent resources for members especially. Local and state societies of your area of interest have databases, they have webinars, they have all kinds of good things, and also they will have meetings that may be helpful to you for learning, whether it's for where you live or where you research. Check them all out.
Yeah, I've had nothing but good vibes from local historical and genealogical societies. They really know a lot. There's people there that know everything about the area. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been referring people to Preservation Oaks now so that they can learn about those.
Oh, thanks.
I also watch for webinars on topics relevant to my research. You can get a newsletter from Legacy Family Tree webinars to see what's coming up. Most are available even to non-subscribers for a few days without the handout. You only get that if you're a member. But you can always join later, and then you have access to thousands of webinars and reams of handouts to browse at your convenience. I'll never catch up with all the ones I want to see, and I've been a member for 5 or 10 years. Mm-hmm. Also look for conferencekeeper.org or Geniebugs calendars for lots of good stuff. Geniebugs is at thesleeplessgenealogist.com. There are several societies of interest to me, so I keep track of their upcoming webinars of interest. Florida State Genealogical Society has a webinar every month, and those are very good on a wide variety of topics. You do what works for you, and just keep your eyes open and look for things. Google what you're interested in and look to see if there's something there. If you're on Facebook, There are Facebook pages for places. Check those out. These are just some examples. Your needs will be different as you research different times and places. When you find something you enjoy, make note and see if there are more coming from the same source.
Oh, great advice. Now, what are the biggest pitfalls researchers face when relying on online records?
One of the biggest pitfalls I find any researcher faces is when they follow the wrong lead and end up researching somebody else's family. Those rabbit holes again. That's why it's so important to verify, correlate, and analyze every piece of information you find as you go. Don't wait to do it later. You may have wasted hours, days, or months by then. Take time to be careful and think about everything you're finding. As I mentioned before, I strongly suggest that when you have to do some analysis and correlation of a source, you write a proof document for your file, explaining how you came to the conclusion you did about the veracity or lack thereof of the information found, even if you're not planning to ever publish. This is for your peace of mind and future reference. I've been researching for over 60 years, so I've had to make a lot of evaluations of records, and there's no way I could ever remember how I made the analysis I did on some of those without a written record in my file. Can you tell I think this is important? Yes. Record everything exactly as you find it. That includes names, dates, and place names. For example, I have many Quakers in my family history, and those records often record dates differently. So I record what I find, then a note explaining how I interpret that into a, quote, modern date to fit it into their timeline. Places can be equally troublesome since boundaries changed. I have some early New England ancestors who lived in Plymouth Colony, Massachusetts Bay Colony, Rhode Island Colony, then the state of Rhode Island and Providence plantations, and the state of Massachusetts. And most of those without ever moving. The borderlines moved. Do it right the first time, and you won't have to worry about it later, unless you find that you were wrong.
Yeah, I've done that many times.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what are some of the most common brick walls you've encountered in your research?
Unfortunately, most of the brick walls I encounter still are of my own making. Usually, I've made an erroneous assumption about someone, and as a result, I can't find that person or record. Or there's a transcription error, or a wrong place, or a misinterpreted relationship. When I feel I have a brick wall, it's time to go back to square one and review everything about that person through his or her entire lifetime. Do I have the right person and parents? Is the migration pattern correct? Are the spouses and children really correct and complete? Do I have marriage, death, and other records? Look at the records again to be sure nothing has been overlooked, misinterpreted, or misattributed to that person. As you can guess from the way I'm stating this, the most common problem is misinterpretation of something that has led me straight down one of those rabbit holes, or making an assumption. I was trying to find a marriage for my great aunt and was becoming quite frustrated until I removed my assumption that it was her first and only marriage. Turns out it was her third, and she had even had a child with her first. Assumptions can be killers, so make sure you review any carefully to be sure they're reasonable and not building a wall for you.
Oh, great. Great information. Now, what's the best way to preserve your findings for future generations?
Very broad question. Again, there's several points to consider. What format do you have to preserve? A computer database, paper documents, artifacts, audio, video. Each of these can be preserved, but the methods are very different. I would refer you to an archivist for advice and recommendations on your particular items. As for your database, remember that technology changes over time. So even if you store it in some common method on a stable device, it may not be accessible in 10, 20, 50 years. So one of the best ways to preserve your research is publish it. It may sound scary, but here are some suggestions. Start a family blog and post articles frequently. I have a friend who posts a different type of item on each day of the week, one article a week for each. He's been doing this for years and has quite a library buildup. I would suggest that you also have these printed out and bound for those who don't have access to the internet regularly, and also for posterity. Write articles for a newsletter, journal, or magazine. Your local genealogical or historical society is always looking for items to publish. If your family member was from another area, that society is also looking for items. There are local, county, state, regional, and national organizations which have interests, so explore them all. If you find some who are interested, you don't have to go to just one. Ask them for their guidelines and be sure to follow them. Putting together these articles may just create a book, which would be great to share with family. If not, at least share copies of the articles by email or at family gatherings, but do something. Nibble that elephant. Just doing one story or person at a time is easy compared to setting out to write the definitive history of your family. But the end result may be the same. And when you have a body of cohesive work, do publish it. It might be photocopies from your home printer or a professionally printed book. Whatever is appropriate, just do it.
Yeah, fantastic advice. It's never going to be perfect, so just do it.
Start now.
Yeah.
Don't wait until, I've got to get it all together. No, do it now. Do it one family at a time. Start with your own immediate family and do the next generation next time. And just do it a little at a time. And before you know it, you'll be old and it'll be done.
Yeah, I've got a genealogist that I know that has published 5 books, and 2 of them are revisions of previous books based upon information that she's found that's new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So just do it.
Thank you for that. What books would you recommend for somebody to learn more about the professional discipline of genealogy?
I have so many books that are wonderful, but here's 5 that will get you started. For just general how to do genealogy, there's a book called The Researcher's Guide to American Genealogy by Val D. Greenwood. It has been published in many editions since it was originally published, but it's a great resource. I recommend that so that you can learn how to research census, how to research this, how to research that. He just talks about the various things that genealogists do. Then I would say you need to be able to cite your sources properly. So Elizabeth Shown Mills, to me, is the goddess of citations, and her Evidence Explained is her current tome on citing history sources from artifacts to cyberspace. And in it, she explains why and how to cite all kinds of sources that genealogists use. Everything from how to cite an interview to obscure types of records that you might find to an artifact that you might have. All of those things are defined in here. Now, if that seems like overkill, she also does what are called quick sheets. And if you go to her website, just Google Elizabeth Shown Mills and you'll find her. Her quick sheets include one that's called the Quick Sheet for Your Stripped Bare Guide to Citing Sources. And it gives the main things that you need to record every time you want to cite a source. And that can sit next to your computer and be right here. And you can even print off blank forms to collect the information. And it's just parts of what's in Evidence Explained. But that's the Bible for citing sources for genealogy. The next one I would suggest is also by Elizabeth Shown Mills. She's the editor of one called Professional Genealogy. Each chapter is by a different professional on preparation, practice, and standards for professional genealogists. And some of the chapters include speaking, writing, citations a little bit. But when I talked about using research plans, one of the chapters is some of the forms that you can use and goes into depth on how to use a research plan, things like that. Mastering Genealogical Proof by Thomas W. Jones is excellent for analyzing and correlating your proof and how you put your sources together to make them actually proof, not just sources. And finally, Genealogy Standards by the Board for Certification of Genealogists. Now, not everybody wants to be a certified genealogist. I wanted to be, but my life interfered. And so I am not certified, but I am professional. I pride myself in doing professional work. And I always have the current volume of genealogy standards, which I follow. So I follow the same standards that a certified genealogist follows to make sure that I'm doing the right things and understanding the right way. So those 5 sources will get you to treating genealogy as a professional, whether you are considering yourself a professional or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And you've been doing genealogy for 60 some years, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And much like if I ever met Elizabeth Shown Mills, much like meeting you, I'd go, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Exactly. I mean, she's my goddess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do know her, so that makes it even better.
Diana, I just want to thank you. You crushed this episode. This has been incredibly insightful, and I want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Before we let you go, what appearances or projects have you got going on right now?
Well, this is my next thing. And then in November, I'll be speaking to the National Danish American Genealogical Society, which is kind of a branch of the Minnesota State Genealogical Society. And I'll be talking about border crossings between the U.S. and Canada, because a lot of Scandinavians came into Canada and then came to America. In my case, my family came to America and then went to Canada. So talking about what you can find and where.
Very cool. And when is that?
That's in November.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to attend, they need to go to the Minnesota Genealogical Society, or where do they need to go?
They can go to the National Danish American Genealogical Society.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to tell you it's been an absolute vibe having you on Preservation Oaks. Huge thanks for bringing your time, your deep expertise, and that unstoppable passion for helping both newbie and veteran genealogists navigate the twisty, turny world of family history.
Oh, thank you so much.
Your insights are straight up gold, Diana. Practical, generous, and seriously inspiring. We're so grateful for the work you do to keep the past alive and shining. And hey, the mic is always open for you. Preservation Oaks is your home anytime you want to come back. We'd be honored to have you on again.
Oh, I look forward to it because this has been a lot of fun. And this and the episode we did before about divorce was interesting. And every time I do a presentation, it makes me do a little research to make sure that I'm ready. And that is always a good thing. That's how I learn.
Fantastic. You're helping everybody. And with that, we conclude our time with Diana Crisman Smith. Listeners, please stay tuned for my comments and wrap-up, which is coming up next. Well, hello and welcome back. And wow, what a phenomenal conversation with Diana Crisman Smith. Her passion for genealogy and her decades of experience have truly illuminated the path for all of us, whether you're just beginning to explore your roots or you've been researching your family tree for years. Diana walked us through the tried and true steps to genealogical success, from setting realistic goals and staying organized to overcoming those frustrating brick walls. She reminded us that genealogy is more than just collecting names and dates. It's about piecing together the real stories of the people who came before us and doing it with care, curiosity, and respect for the historical record. If today's episode sparked new ideas, helped you tackle a long-standing research problem, or simply inspired you to dig a little deeper, I hope you'll reach out and let Diana know. You can connect with her through the Genealogical Speakers Guild directory or email her directly at talkgenealogy@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you too. Have you applied some of the steps discussed today? Did something finally click in your family research? Share your wins questions, or roadblocks with us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. We might even feature your story in a future episode. As always, thank you for listening to Preservation Oaks. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who love history and family stories. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep documenting what matters, and most importantly, keep preserving those precious family memories. Now onward to our next episode of Preservation Oaks. The next episode is the final episode of Season 4 of the Preservation Oaks podcast. Season 4 was such a great season, so we thought it would be a great idea to do a Season 4 retrospective and Season 5 preview. That should be a good episode. Hope you stay tuned for that one. Hey, this is Sean Radcliff. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Cymbalbird, Audio Zen, Piano Days, Premium Beat, 8-Ball Audio, Music Doggy, and Scott Holmes. See you all next time on Preservation Oaks. And until then, keep on giving and keep on living the good life.
Microstream Radio is a registered trademark. You can visit at www.microstreamradio.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by Microstream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, reproduced, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of Microstream Radio. Preservation Oaks starring Sean Radcliff originates in Salt Lake City, Utah. Be sure to join us for our next episode on your favorite podcast platform. This is Thaddeus Dillon speaking. Preservation Oaks has come to you through the worldwide podcast platform Podbean, and our home is preservationoaks.podbean.com. Hopefully you found today's episode useful, informative, and thought-provoking. If so, please like, follow, comment, and/or subscribe. Remember that being free means being free to be curious, and that historical and genealogical societies and museums allow us to discover the past, be free to explore, where curiosity opens every door. Thanks to everyone for listening. Stay cozy, curious, and keep exploring the incredible stories that shape our world. Remember to cherish and support the preservation of history in your own communities. The content of this program is provided for educational and informational purposes only. Some material included in this program may be copyrighted by third parties. However, under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act, the doctrine of fair use allows the limited use of copyrighted material without requiring permission from the rights holders when used for purposes such as education, criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. These uses are legally permitted even if they might otherwise constitute infringement. If you wish to use copyrighted material from this program for purposes beyond fair use, you must obtain permission from the copyright owner. If you believe your copyrighted material has been used in this program in a way that does not qualify as fair use, please contact us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. Thank you.